All right, thank you everyone for joining us. I would like to thank everyone who participated in helping the Rules Committee to prepare these proposals. Special thanks go out to Sue Alvarez, our Rules Vice Chair, Ignacio, our Econ Liaison, the Secretariat, and committee chairs and vice chairs for their support. Following up on what Steve just said about these meetings becoming being more permanent moving forward, one of the biggest disadvantages of conducting these types of meetings virtually is the absence of the impersonal connections that come with being at in-person meetings. Often these in-person meetings lead to new ideas and allow thoughtful debate about the issues being presented. So immediately following the virtual session last year, me and a lot of others within Ista wondered what people thought of the virtual session. Overall, the feedback was good. Several of the positives included the ability of more of our members to participate, a more diverse submission of comments, and an overall increased scrutiny of the proposals being considered. What caught my attention most was the large number of people that participated. I believe that having more people involved in the process results in a final document that is thoroughly vetted and does a better job of meeting the needs of ISTA's stakeholders. Because of these positives, like Steve said, I support making this virtual session permanent moving forward. This year, the Rules Committee submits 9 editorial correction and 16 rules proposals. We also received several comments. In fact, I was still receiving comments as of late yesterday and this morning, so not all comments will be presented today. For those comments that came in earlier, most have already been answered by the relevant committee chairs. For those that did not get answered, I would ask the chair or vice chair or the relevant committee member to respond. After this meeting, the technical committees will have an opportunity to consider the comments and make updates to their proposals. These updates will be published on the ISTA website several days before the ordinary general meeting so that you will have an opportunity to see any revisions. In addition to publishing the updates, I will mention those changes at the OGM prior to the vote. During the OGM, new comments will not be considered. Successful proposals will become effective January 1st, 2022. So as I start the review of the proposals, please remember that anything crossed out in red or inserted in blue are original edits that was published 2 months prior to the OGM. Any changes in green are primarily editorial corrections that were discovered after publication. Since I was still receiving comments as of this morning, committees have not had an opportunity to review them or respond. So at the end of each proposal that received comments, I will ask the chair or vice chair or designated member if they have anything to add. I will update the comments document with the official comments and responses prior to the OGM, which will be published on the ISTA website. Andreas will also be available throughout this meeting to answer any questions on or to receive any comments that I have not received yet or that you guys kind of come up with as we're going through these proposals. So I'll begin with the editorial corrections. Let me see if I can get my screen shared. Andreas, I believe you may have to give me control.
I will do now, Ernest.
Okay, thank you.
It was a little bit quicker, Olga.
Okay.
Okay, I enlarged my screen so hopefully everyone can read what is on the screen. If not, send Andreas a note. I'll try to enlarge it a little bit more so that it's more easily visible. So starting with editorial corrections, the first editorial correction, This proposal removes obsolete website information from 1.5.2.2. The same editorial correction will occur in section 3.7. This was submitted by the Purity TCOM. For those that didn't have any changes since they were proposed, I'm going to kind of just scroll through them. Again, you'll have an opportunity to send Andreas a message letting him know if you have any questions. The next editorial correction, the accreditation working group proposed an improvement to the text from chapter 3 related to the proposal C.2.3, storage of the samples. The changes are intended to clarify the intent of sections 3.5.2 and harmonize it with the wording in section 4.5.2. This was submitted by the Ista accreditation department. The next editorial correction, an incorrect reference is used in Rule 2.5.2.1, minimum size of working sample that needs to be corrected. 2.2.11 covers marking and labeling. Treated seeds are defined in 2.2.12. So that reference was just changed from 2.2.11 to 2.2.12. Corrections to the protocol for the approval of automatic seed samplers required due to the 2019 update of the Ista stabilized list. I did receive a comment on this proposal. It was because the author's name was in this proposal. You can see that I marked that out to be consistent throughout the rules in terms of not putting author's initials in examples. And I will actually show that comment. So this is first comment. It is correct to include the author name L for the editorial corrections for protocol. Last year, the membership voted to remove author names from examples within the rules. And again, we responded to be consistent. The author's initial will be removed from the examples from this section and throughout the rules when found. The next editorial correction to the protocol for the approval of automatic seed samplers required due to the renumbering of the Ista tables in the 2020 Ista rules. The change was made from changing it to table 2A to table 2C. The next editorial correction, additions required to the 2019 update of the Ista list of stabilized plant names. There were several changes that needed to be made. The two here, M maximus and T elongatum. There was also an additional editorial change that the Rules Committee put in because it was very similar and it was required due to the 2019 update of the Ista list of stabilized names. So it changed the number of items in this proposal that needed to be changed from 4 to 5. And I'll scroll down so you can see those changes. This portion of this proposal did not change, but the very bottom did. So I'll kind of just keep moving until I get to the part that actually changed from what was published. And here you are. What was added was Hordeum vulgare, the subspecies vulgare was actually added to this proposal to be consistent with the Ista stabilized list. All right. The next proposal, the Germination Committee received a request to consider the symbols used to denote division for 5.6.1 of the Ista rules. The request was to change the colon symbol to a / symbol. This change was supported by the Germination Committee. And you can see those changes. I did receive a comment regarding this editorial correction, and it is here. What is the rationale in 5.6.1 for switching the symbol used to denote division in this editorial change? Is it to choose a more common symbol for division, or to be consistent with the division symbol used in other parts of the Ista rules? And the Germination Committee responded, this was a request from a member of another committee suggesting it would be good to have consistency within the rules. Currently, the Moisture Committee uses the / symbol in Chapter 9. Since the Germination Committee responded to that comment, I'm going to move forward. The next editorial correction, the temperature for DNA extraction indicated in the validation report was reported wrongly in this method. So that temperature was modified and changed from 65 degrees C to 100 degrees C. I did not receive any comments on this editorial correction. This editorial correction was added. It was not published. It was a change that was supposed to occur in the 2020 edition that didn't happen, so I felt it would be okay to put it in now. It dealt with 18.8.1, clarification on how to report purity content of seed mixtures. This proposal was approved in the 2020 edition. The change, however, was placed in the wrong place within 18.8.1. This editorial change corrects the error. So initially, this change was put in the 4th paragraph of this section. You can see it beginning there in red on the left. And the change was to put it in the right paragraph, in the 2nd paragraph of this section. So there was no wording change or anything like that, just a change in location to make the section flow better. Due to that movement, though, we were required to renumber some of the paragraphs within the section, and you can see those changes here in red and blue. And that ends the editorial corrections. Andreas, you didn't interrupt me, so I'm guessing that no one had any comments. Moving forward, if someone mentions has a comment, just stop me and we can answer those comments.
Yeah, I didn't interrupt you because there were no comments on coming in the chat box. I would like to remind everybody again, if you want to have the floor, please give me a sign in the chat box and I will give you the floor.
Thank you, Andreas. So moving on to Part B, new species and changes to species names. There was an addition of new species to table 2C. There was an Ista method validation study conducted on Chenopodium quinoa, which provides evidence showing the best germination method for repeatability and reproducibility is 20 degrees C, TP, or BP, and first count after 4 days and final count after 7 days. Evaluations were carried out according to seedling type E, seedling group A2111. Sample and maximum seed lot size for this species is based on 1,000 seed weight determination and was approved by the bulking and sampling committee and purity committee. The purity committee also proposed a PSD 2 and none Chaffee for this species. This proposal is supported by the Germination Committee, and again, is supported with a method validation study. I did not receive any comments on this addition, so I'll just scroll through it slowly so you can see those changes. For B.1.2, changes to the Ista stabilized list, we did not have any changes this year. The next revision of the Ista stabilized list will be considered at the 2025 Ista meeting. Part C, rules changes and methods requiring a vote. The first rule change was C.1.1, clarifying primary nomenclature reporting source in Ista. This proposal is to add the Ista list of stabilized names as the primary source for reporting other seeds. The following proposal was developed by the Purity Committee and approved by a majority vote within the committee. If approved, this change will also apply to reporting results section in Chapter 4, 4.7. I did not receive any comments from this proposal, so I will go through it slowly so you can see the entire proposal and its changes.
Ernest, I don't see any messages in the chat box on that.
Thank you. Moving on to Chapter 2, C.2.1, sampling, revision of 2.2.12, treated seed, and 2.2.13, coated seed. This rule proposal has been submitted by the Bulking and Sampling Committee. The changes are requested to clarify that additives are used to either treat or to coat seed and may contain one or more of the listed ingredients. In the current wording, it could be construed that only one additive could be used as either treated seed or coated seed. The proposals was discussed and unanimously approved by the Bulking and Sampling Committee. I did not receive any comments on this proposal.
No comments or questions in the chat box.
Okay. C.2.2, revision of 2.5.2.2.1, mechanical divider method. This rules proposal has been submitted by the Bulking and Sampling Committee. The changes are requested to enable a more accurate description of the various types of dividers that may be used for sample reduction. The proposals was discussed and unanimously approved by the Bulking and Sampling Committee. I did receive a comment on this proposal, and sorry, it's jumping around a little bit. I'll scroll through it first and then I'll move to the comment so that you can see it. Apologies. Wow. So the comments received on this proposal, and it's probably best if you haven't already that you take out your copy of the rules proposal document, because while we're discussing the comments, you will only be able to see the comments and not the section of the rules document that's being discussed if you don't have your own copy available. So the general comment for this one was, what is the difference between channel and space? Could the text be reduced to 15 channels? What are these changes based on? And does it exist in any documentation or where the number of channels is required for dividing? We're going from a requirement of 18 channels to a requirement, are we going from a requirement of 18 channels to a requirement based on what is commercially available? Unfortunately, this got to the B Bulking and Sampling Committee kind of late, so they were not able to respond. Eddie, are you available? Are you online to respond to this comment?
Yes, Chair, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Sorry for not responding. I received it late. I'm busy with field work at the moment, so my email connectivity is a bit dicey. Regarding the channels and the spaces, if you open up a banner divider or conical divider, you'll see this. Channels are things that channel seed into a certain direction, and the spaces is just open spaces where the seed falls through. So if you add the 15 channels and the 15 spaces together, then you have 30 openings, so to speak. So the 15 channels are divided into one container, receiving container, and the spaces it falls through to the other container. So that's the two halves. So if we have 15 channels and 15 spaces together, it's 30. Where at the moment it says just 18 channels. So it's a bit of not accurately describing how a banner divider looks like, or a conical divider. So we'll just try to clarify that a little bit. So if you look at all the conical dividers that you get in the labs, usually they have many more than 18. So that's what we try to do. I hope that answers the question. Of course, any of the other BSc members are welcome also to add to that.
Anyone else from the Bulking and Sampling Committee who wants to add something? Sorry, Honest.
Okay, no problem. So Eddie, I'm gonna keep you there because there are two more comments and both of these comments are related. So I'm gonna just scroll down, read those comments, and I'll give you an opportunity to respond to those also.
Good.
Okay. So this method proposes to have a specific number of channels as the minimum requirement for different types of dividers. For example, 10 channels for the soil divider and 15 for the conical divider. Is there any supporting evidence, such as from literature or a study, demonstrate these numbers of channels are the minimum requirement. And then there was a follow-up comment that was similar. Under B, soil divider suggests 10 channels be regarded as a minimum, be reworded as a minimum of 10 channels is required. And again, that's just a wording change, the second comment. So Eddie, whenever you want to, if you want to respond to that first comment.
No, we haven't done any comparative studies for this proposal. So yeah, it's we've discussed it, and there were historically some experiments done, but we don't have any data to submit to prove that at this stage that lesser channels are not as accurate. But I think there were some studies done, but we have not done it specifically for this full proposal.
Thank you, Eddie. And that the third comment there about suggesting the rewording, that will be something that the bulking and sampling committee can look at after this meeting, and they can let me know if they do want to make that wording change. So we'll move on to the next, if there are no more questions.
And I have no questions in the chat box on that one.
Great. So we'll move on to the next proposal, C.2.3, revision of 2.5.3, storage of samples. This rules proposal has been submitted by the bulking and sampling committee. This change requested refer to chapter 3 and 4 respectively for clarification on the way in which the different fractions of working samples should be stored after testing. This proposal was drawn up with the consultation with the purity committee and unanimously approved by the bulking and sampling committee through voting. I did not receive any comments on this proposal, so I'll go through it slowly, and Andres can let us know if there were any comments pop up. The only reference change is there in blue in the center of the screen. The next proposal.
I've got no comments on the previous one.
Thank you. The next proposal, C.2.4, revision of 2.8, table 2C parts 1 and 3. This rules proposal has been submitted by the bulking and sampling committee. When Salvia hispanica was added to the Ista rules in 2020, it was listed under table 2C part 3. The BSC has since then received requests from Ista accredited laboratories to move it from table 2C part 3 to table 2C part 1, as it is also used as a food and in with large quantities of the commodity, as well as seed lots are produced. Therefore, it should be regarded as an agricultural crop. Consequently, the maximum seed lot size will also be adjusted to the maximum for small seeded agricultural species, i.e. 10,000 kilograms. From data supplied by the Purity Committee in 2019, the average TSW is 0.13 grams. Therefore, the minimum submitted sample size and other seed by number working sample are increased to 35 grams, so it would contain at least 25,000 seeds and be consistent with other parts in part 1, with other species in part 1, where the OSD is 10 times the purity weight. This proposal was drawn up in consultation with the Purity Committee and unanimously approved by the Bulking and Sampling Committee. After this proposal was submitted, we received additional information that there will be a consequential change that will occur if this proposal is accepted. It will occur in Chapter 5. Salvia hispanica will need to be removed from Table 5A Part 3 to Table 5A Part 1, Agricultural and Vegetable Seed. The Germination Committee brought this to my attention. I did not receive any comments on this proposal, so I'll just scroll through it slowly so you can see those changes. And this is the part of the proposal that you have not seen. So I'll leave it here just for a second so you can review. Any questions on this proposal, Andres?
No questions on that proposal yet.
Okay, thank you. I am probably moving faster than most people can type, so if a question pops up later, we can always go back to the previous proposal.
Yeah, you just need to type a Q or question or remark in the chat box, and I will give you the floor. You can ask the question then directly.
Okay. Moving to Chapter 3, the purity analysis. C point 3.1, revised definition of inert matter. A question to the purity TCOM noted that it was not obvious how to categorize fern spores if they were found in purity tests or other seed determinations. After discussion, a majority of the purity TCOM members agreed that fern spurs can be defined as inert matter. The following proposal has been developed by the purity TCOM and approved by a majority vote of the committee. All right. I did receive a comment on this proposal. The first comment, is it redundant to write ergot sclerotia? Could only sclerotia be used? The purity committee was able to respond to this comment. The sentence seems incorrect or not clear. However, the purity committee will take this question before a group discussion and make a committee decision. They welcome Ista members' comments to the purity committee as well. So if you have anything else to communicate after this open rules discussion, you can also contact the purity committee directly. There was another comment about this proposal. Some countries may classify fern spores in the seed categories. Some countries have fern spore species in their weed species list. We thought this should be considered. And along the same comment, fern spurs are generative organs. They are not seed but fertile structures. Can they be included in inert matter? The purity committee responded, the purity committee will take a group discussion and consider this and consider what is the best way to move forward with this special form of quote unquote seed. Again, they welcome additional comments. Regine, do you have anything to add to this? Or Andres, do you have any additional comments that require additional clarity?
I have no comments. Regine?
Yeah, So at this point, the purity committee is continue the discussion. So I think we will, once the purity committee make a final decision, then we will go back to make a certain response to those questions.
And so once the purity committee come up with a unified decision, they will give me that response. I will include it on this document so that everyone can see what the responses to these questions, what the final responses to these questions were.
Yeah, I've got another question on that topic from Berta. Berta Killerman, please.
Thank you, Andreas. I just wanted to mention that it is we should be really careful in this issue because the most fern species are really noxious. So to put the fern spores only in the inert matter, we should be carefully. Thank you.
Maybe just a question from me to countries where fern spores are regarded noxious and who would like to have them not classified as inert matter. Could they please raise their hands or give a comment on their side if that is regarded by them as an inert matter or not? I look at countries like Australia, for instance. Do we have Australia present? That seems not to be the case.
Okay. Again, I think your point is valid, Andreas. For those countries that may have to go back and talk to their stakeholders, again, I think immediately you should probably get in contact with the purity committee, let them know your situation so that they can consider your comments in their response. That again, we will publish once we get those.
Yeah. So Ernest, I probably add a little bit more is the debate right now is fern spore it can generate plants. That is not a problem. The difference when it classified as inert or as other seeds, the difference is if it classified as inert material, it still need you to indicate what are those inert material. For example, you have to specify if it's ergot, sclerotia, or foreign spore. So you still need to classify. And some argument is other material inert material still can be regulated. For example, soil, ergot, sclerotia. The difference if it classified as other seeds, because some country regulate foreign spore, and it need to identify to what kind of species, whether it's regulated species. Foreign spore is a generic term. If it classified as other seed, it could be further identified to like other seeds. You need to identify what genus, for example, what family, for example. So those are discussion point in purity committee. However, Ista rule doesn't define spore as a seed. So it should go to table 3B part 2. So the question would be, it should be classified as inert material, or it can be add a new pure seed definition. So it's quite complex. So purity committee will need some time to be carefully to discuss on this issue. Then the conclusion will get back to you. I just want to add how complex this issue could be.
And I got a message here from Bill Fuller from Australia mentioning that Australia will take it as a question on notice and return once consulting locally. Bill, could you please return to Ernest with your comments on that? That would be highly appreciated. And Melanie, you want to mention something as well. Melanie Shorey, could you come up and ask?
Yes, for C.3.1, the question whether it's redundant to write ergot and sclerotia. Ergot is a fungal disease, and sclerotia are hardened masses produced by multiple fungi. They are not necessarily a fungal disease, they are a physical feature. So there are currently two different things being conveyed by the words ergot and sclerotia. And so the purity committee needs to keep that in mind. These are not synonyms for each other.
Great point. Thank you, Melanie. And thank you, Regine, for all those points you brought up too, explaining how complex this issue is. Really appreciate that. I think it brought a lot
there's
of
a
clarity.
comment from Valerie Grimaud as well. Sclerotia is, for me, a fungal disease. The CTAS committee could help in this question. So the CTAS committee is offering their help in looking at that part of the rules.
Good. When we have purity have a final sentence, I would send to Valerie to have their review as well. Okay,
Great.
Thank you, Valerie, for offering.
Thank you.
Great. Are there any other comments, Andreas?
No.
All right. Let's move forward to the next proposal. C.3.2, revised pure seed definition for O sativas. O sativas and O compresses and O sativas are in the Ista rules. O sativas is currently not assigned a PSD. This proposal assigns a PSD to O sativas. PSD 23 is valid for Ornithopus in general. A species mention, a specific mention is given for O compressus only. In O sativas, the morphological situation is comparable to that in O compressus, but it is not mentioned in PSD 23. The following proposal has been developed by the Purity Committee to correct this omission and approved by a majority vote of the committee. I did not receive a comment for this proposal, so I will just scroll through so that you can see the edit. Moving on to chapter 5, the germination test.
I got no comments on that one, Ernest.
Sounds good. C.5.1, alternate germination method for Istoma exaltum. A validation study was carried out in 2016 to support the introduction of E. exaltum to the ISTA Rules Table 5A Part 3. 6 laboratories participated. 3 germination methods differing only in temperature, 20 degrees C, 25 degrees C, and 20 to 30 degrees C, were evaluated in this study. Statistical analysis showed only one method, 20 to 30 degrees Celsius, had acceptable repeatability and reproducibility. This temperature is now the prescribed ISTA method for seed germination for the species. In 2019, a new study reevaluated the 20 degrees Celsius temperature, given its importance to laboratories testing seed for cut flowers in Japan. and the inclusion of this temperature in the AOSA rules for seed testing. The proposed temperature was compared to the current prescribed Ista temperature of 20 to 30 degrees Celsius. The 2019 study has successfully shown that the 20C method produces results comparable to those produced with the standard method. Statistical analysis shows the average percentage of normal seedlings, repeatability, and reproducibility are acceptable. This proposal is supported by the Flower Seed Committee, the Germination Committee, and a method validation study. I did not receive additional comments on this proposal.
No further comments in the chat.
Okay, moving on to the next proposal, C.5.2, germination method for glycine max, addition of growing media. An Ista method validation study was conducted to determine the suitability of utilizing crepe cellulose paper as a primary media for the top of paper method for glycine max, and allow this media to be added to the Ista rules table 5A part 1. The current Ista rules germination media options for glycine max include sand between paper and top of paper with a sand covering, with paper being CCP and organic growing media. The purpose of this study was to harmonize the Ista rules with the AOSA rules. The use of CCP for the TP method was adopted in the AOSA rules in 1980. Since then, this highly efficient test method has been successfully utilized for accurately assessing the germination of seed lots by both governmental and non-governmental laboratories across multiple decades. There was a note. An abbreviation for crepe cellulose paper is not required, as it is a type of paper used for the TP method and was added as a method for Zea mays under additional advice in 2019. A comment from the ECOM suggested the statement use CCP for TTP method was a direction and not additional advice. This proposal moves the statement to the additional directions column in line with the ECOM comment for Zea mays and adds the statement to the same column for glycine max. This proposal is supported by the Germination Committee and a method validation study. I did receive a comment on this proposal, but first I'll scroll through so you can see the changes before I switch screens. If this proposal is accepted, there will be a consequential change in 5.10. The Germination Committee has decided to add CCP to the proposed germination media. So the first comment, how should additional directions be interpreted? Is column 7 meant to override information given in other columns, i.e. use CCP for TP is an imperative? As far as we can see, the information in column 7 given for the other species acts more as a required additional information than a requirement to override the requirements listed in the other columns. 5.10 states The sequence of alternative substrates does not indicate any preference. The Germination Committee's response. Currently, this is the wording used for Zea mays, which went into effect in the Ista rules in 2020. They actually added a document below so that you can see that change. The wording was used to allow the use of crepe cellulose paper as the TP method. Any substrate can be used. There is no preference, but if TP is being used, then this refers to the use of CCP. It goes on to show the original change. Sorry. And it says prior to this in the Ista rules 2019, the information below was added explaining why an abbreviation was not required for crepe cellulose paper. So they did decide to add it in this proposal later, as we saw in the consequential change. Subsequently, the current Ista rules proposal in the current Ista rules proposals, the information for Zea mays in the additional advice has been requested to be removed from additional directions, and therefore it was added to the proposal for glycine max. Jillian or David, would either of you like to comment further on your comments for this proposal?
Hey Ernest, this is David. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
This kind of, for folks that aren't familiar with CCP, it's very unique, unlike towels and blotter. The media, when it's moistened, it forms crepes. Therefore, that's where it gets its name, crepe cellulose. It forms, it changes its form. Instead of being flat, it kind of comes around, and then it's able to more or less, it makes better seed contact to allow imbibation. I guess it kind of got, it's kind of been a twisty trail on this type of media. It's very unique in a sense that it's not like the other paper media. My preference would be that, you know, that there would actually be a top of paper CCP method added to the rules, because CCP is very unique. But in this circumstance, if you do, just like we had written in our reply from the Germ TCOM, if you do use the top of paper method for glycine max, you need to use CCP just because of the properties it has versus if you were to do a comparative test of, say, putting glycine max seed on top of a flat towel with no cover, or even on top of, you know, any other paper media. The seed would not perform well because the seed doesn't have good contact with the media that's required to allow for imbibation, and so it gets really kind of complicated in that the properties of CCP are very unique when compared to the other paper media, and that's why we need to put it into that category that it is required if you do the top of paper method. That you must use the CCP for Zea mays as well as for glycine max. That's kind of where we're at with that topic. I hope that addresses the concern. What we were hoping to do was be able just because of schedules and everything, we weren't able to. I was going to do a presentation for the Germ TCOM. We were going to have an open session, and if you're not familiar with CCP media, it's a challenge to try to describe to folks how it works. But that's what we were hoping to do in our Germ TCOM open meeting, was allow people that had any questions or wanted to be more familiar with this type of media to actually see photos of it and how the seeds perform on it. Like I mentioned, and we've mentioned in our proposal, in the U.S. in the labs, it's been used for decades successfully, and I know it's, from my experience with just talking to other ISTA members, it's a relatively unfamiliar to a lot of people in the ISTA world of testing, that CCP isn't widely used, if at all. So it's kind of, it seems to be, my experience has been, it seems to be very much of a USA popular media versus in other parts of the world, and I just apologize that there's some unfamiliarity with that, but it is a requirement for the top of paper for those two species that it would be required to use CCP.
I've got a question here from Steve. Steve
Okay.
Jones, would you like to go in and ask your question? Maybe another question going back to you, Dave and Jillian. Is
Yes.
your committee having a open committee session where you could discuss that with the public?
Yes, that's correct, Andres.
Okay, then I can ask all the others, follow up the ISTA website on this, and the newsletter. Please subscribe to the newsletter, and you will get the information when this open session will be held, and you can participate in this open session. Nadine will keep you all updated on that.
Yes, the ISTA Germ TCOM open meeting has been set. I maybe need Jillian to confirm the date, and the time was June 8th. Jillian, is that correct? Exactly.
So while Jillian's looking for that,
Yes.
David, I was just going to say that we have the ISTA TCOM sessions for people, although they're just short sessions on the 1st or 2nd of June, depending on what technical committee. There could be an opportunity to show some pictures of that. And like you said, the VersaPack or the CCP is unique to kind of North America, but like you've shown, it gives good results. So maybe at either the TCOM session or the open session, because if the open session is before the voting closes, which closes on the 11th of June, that will give people to have a look at it. But you also do have your validation study online, which justifies the additions and is supported by the Germ committee as well. So thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
And Jillian was sending a message around that she has got problems with her microphone.
Okay, so since she has problems, Andres, do you have any other comments on this proposal?
No.
Okay. So we'll move forward to the next proposal. And again, if any additional information is submitted to me by the Germ committee, I will have that information published on the ISTA website in a few days.
Just another message from Jillian. The Germination Open Committee meeting is on June 8, 1600 CEST. Thank you, Jillian.
Okay, so the next proposal, C.5.3, germination method for P. sylvestris, addition of growing media. An ISTA method validation study was conducted to determine the suitability of utilizing agar as a primary method for P. sylvestris and adding this media to the ISTA rules table 5A part 2. Different combinations of media and temperatures were studied. The temperatures of 20 degrees Celsius and 20 to 30 degrees Celsius were compared and were used in combination with the following methods on top of paper and agar. Results showed good repeatability and reproducibility for both methods. Therefore, it is proposed to add agar to the Ista rules for P. sylvestris. This proposal is supported by the Germination Committee, the Forest, Tree, and Shrub Committee, and a method validation study. I did receive a comment on this proposal, but first I'll just scroll through this proposal for you to see it. There was a comment that came in. We had the wrong proposal number listed, and that was corrected. None of this information changed from what was published online, so I'm just going to keep moving through it in the interest of time.
I got a question from Berta here, Berta Killerman.
Okay.
Thank you, Andreas. I should ask a question on behalf of Dagmar Schneck, a colleague from Germany. She's doing the forestry and shrub seed testing, and she is asking if the new method replace the existing method, it is an additional method for Pinus sylvestris. Thank you.
You want to answer, Ernest, or should I answer on that?
I'm sorry. I didn't hear what I didn't catch everything she said, Andreas. You may want to answer it.
It's an additional method.
Okay.
Because all the other methods, as you saw, will stay inside the rules. Agar is only additional substrate.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Michael Kruse has got a comment here.
Okay. Okay.
Michael?
My only question is, what is the unit of the concentration that is given? 0.7 to 1%? Is it percent or what is it? It just says 0.7 to 1.
Would someone from the Germination Committee like to respond to that comment?
Thank you, Michael, for your question. I think well the basis would be I don't know exactly for sure if percentage would be the correct percentage. That maybe I pose a question back to everyone, but is when you measure the density of agar, is it expressed as a percentage? Because what this basically, I just tell you the concentration is formulated by adding 0.7 grams of powder, agar powder, to 1,000 mLs of water. So then that would be expressed as a percentage. Is that be the correct expression? For those of you that are more familiar with, agar preparation.
David, if that's what you're doing in the lab, and that's what you used in the validation study, grams per liter, I think that's just what we need to put in the rules so that people can follow it in the same way.
So then, like, to address Michael's question, then it would stay as is and no, it's not actually a percentage. Is that what you're saying, Steve?
I think Michael was just observing that there's a unit missing. So is it grams or is it percentage? So if it is 0.7 grams per liter volume of water, that's what you just need in the proposal.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that correct, Michael?
Exactly.
Okay.
So then we would need to amend the proposal and add the abbreviation for grams after both of those values. That would be the remedy.
Sorry, Melissa Phillips also mentioned they use percentage concentration in their methodologies. And what we need to have here probably is a unit. Either it is percent or it's gram per liter, which is not percent, which is promille. So you need to look what it is really.
Yeah.
And that should be coming from the, Valerie Grimaud says for CTELs, it's expressing gram per liter, which would not be a percentage.
So it seems like throughout Ista, most people are doing grams per liter.
Yeah, some do in percentage, I can see from the chat box, and some do in grams per liter. So what we need to have here is clear what it is, percent or gram per liter.
Okay.
Well, in the validation,
otherwise it would probably be gram per, well, 10 grams per liter or something like that. Is it decagrams? I think, yeah.
Okay. David, do you have anything else?
no, it was in grams per liter to get the concentration, just as I had, described it would be 0.7 grams per 1,000 mLs.
Okay, yeah. That's gram per liter, yeah.
Yep. Okay. So
thank you for the clarification.
I didn't get a chance to go over these comments before we started taking comments from the audience. We've already, when I was going through the proposal, I went through the first general comment and show you where we made that change from. There was an error in terms of the which proposal we were talking about, so we changed it from C.5.2 to C.5.3. Dave just finished explaining or just finished getting clarification on what he needs to do in terms of adding the units for the second comment. And the third comment hasn't been explored yet. 5.6.2.1.4, the agar method. The last sentence describes agar thickness, describing agar thickness states and a much thicker for large seeded species, and much thicker for large seeded species. This is imprecise compared to that for small seeded species, which currently states the agar must be no less than 3 millimeters thick. A thickness should be given. That was a recent comment, and I have not had an opportunity to get a germination committee response. So Dave, while I have you on, do you want to comment on that?
All right. Well, I would suppose then you could put in there, you could just simply state greater than 3 millimeters for larger seeded. This is going to vary. It can vary, and the study didn't really say how thick it needed to be. The comparison would be like when you're doing a rolled towel test. The rules don't tell you if you need to do 2 layers of rolled towels or 3 layers of rolled towels. So it doesn't really give you a precise measurement on the number of towels to use. It's just that the rules do state in principle that the media should provide enough mass, in a sense, to provide adequate moisture to the seeds during the test. So that's part of the reason why maybe in the proposal I just probably was thinking but didn't put it into words. And I agree that it would be good to add, greater than 3 millimeters, because the larger the seed in general, that's going to require more media to provide adequate moisture for the developing seedling during the test period.
Okay. So Dave, if you will, once you make, if you would make that change in your proposal document, just send it back to me. I'll make that edit so that it reads exactly how you want it to read.
Thank you.
If anyone has any additional comments or follow-ups on some of these comments that are presented here, I modified the wording so that it read slightly different when I was putting these comments into the document. So if it's not answering, asking the questions that you want, you can speak up now so that we can make sure that we get clarity on your question.
Yeah, and I appreciate everybody's input on helping us to clarify these points. It makes it much more of a meaningful method.
I got no more comments here.
Okay, so in that case, we'll move forward. The next proposal is C.5.4, revision of the wording regarding germination using top of paper. The Germination Committee proposes to remove the word upright regarding the top of paper method. This wording suggests that if seeds were planted in an upright position, they may fall off the TP. This wording is more appropriate for between paper method. This proposal is supported by the Germination Committee. I did not receive any comments on this proposal, so I will just scroll through it slowly so that you can see the edits. The next proposal.
I've got no comments in the chat box, Ernest.
Great. The next proposal, C.5.5, changes in abnormal seedling evaluation. The Germination Committee proposes to add the seedling abnormality criterion 32/07 to allium species regarding primary infection. This proposal is supported by the Germination Committee. I did not receive any comments on this proposal, so it will stay as it was originally submitted.
And neither do I.
Okay. Chapter 7, Seed Health Testing. C.7.1, Revision of Validated Seed Health Methods 7-013A and 7-013B. This proposed change will allow the optional use of methyl blue stain and to aid visualization of the fungi hyphae in methods 7-013A and 7-013B. This option is based on a method validation carried out by SASA for the Seed Health Committee coupled to a PT. The report found that the inclusion of methyl blue stain in a test method of U-Nuda in barley could help laboratories that have difficulty when attempting to identify hyphae in the scutellum without staining. This proposal was approved and supported by the Seed Health Committee. I did not receive any comments on this proposal, so I will just go through it slowly so that you can see those changes.
I've got no comments in the chat box.
Okay, moving forward, C.7.2, harmonization of pretreatments for methods 7-005, 7-006, 7-014, 7-016, and 7-022. This proposal harmonizes pretreatments and updates the description for several similar methods within Chapter 7. The harmonized pretreatments are supported by validation studies carried out by the Seed Health Committee. This proposal was approved by majority vote of the Seed Health Committee. I did not receive any comments on this proposal.
No comments in the chat box, only the thing that we have to correct the header on that one.
Yep. All right, the next chapter, Chapter 9, determination of moisture content. C.9.1, guidance for species not listed in Table 9A, but is included in Table 2C. There have been questions on how to report moisture results for species listed in Table 2C, but not listed in Table 9A. The proposed cross-reference in the reporting section of Chapter 9 gives clear advice. The following proposal has been developed and approved by a majority vote of the Moisture Committee. I did not receive additional comments, so we will just scroll through this one slowly also. All right.
No additional comments in the chat box, Ernest.
Okay. So with that proposal, that concludes all 16 proposals that we have received. We've went over all the comments that we've received so far. If you have additional comments, please reach out to the TCOM committees directly. If you don't have emails to the chairs, they can be found on the ISTA website under TCOM committees. TCOM chairs, if you can, for all the changes that we talked about today, if you have any additional edits to the comments document, please get those edits to me within the next few days. See, today is Thursday, so I'm hoping that within about 3 or 4 days, you guys could get that information to me. I will collate everything and send that to the Secretariat so that the responses can be posted on the ISTA website. And with that, that concludes that concludes everything I have. Andreas?
That is perfect. Thank you, Ernest. I just want to draw your attention to the next upcoming two things, which are the presentation sessions of the Ista TCOMs on June 1 and 2, and the presentation session for the annual general meeting, the ordinary general meeting, which is on June 3. I hand over to Steve for his concluding remarks if there are no other questions from the audience here. I see that is not the case.
Thank you very much, Andreas, and thank you, Ernest. Excellent job to take us through those. And even though it's a virtual discussion, we had some good discussion. So I think it's very good to have this session and involve everybody. It allows us to have some useful discussion and progress some difficult topics like were raised and clarify the details. So it's much appreciated, the participation from everybody today. We had, just over 80 people, and I know it's 2 a.m. in the morning in New Zealand at the moment. So I do appreciate the people from those different time zones coming in and joining us. The session is recorded, so for other people that couldn't join today, they can look at the session again, and that again, the link will be put on the Ista website. So once again, thank you very much for all your work in your committee, which is the chairs of the technical committees, and also Sue Alvarez helping you, and Vanessa as well, and the secretariat in getting out the translations from the different countries that do this for the rules, and also to allow the whole rules process to go forward. So thank you very much, Ernest. And I think Michael Cruiser just made the suggestion as we're finished, Andreas, that we can all switch our cameras off and say hello, goodbye to everybody. So if people wanted to do that and take some screenshots for this for the rest of the event, that would be a way to go. So thank you very much for everybody joining us today, and we'll stay on the line for a little bit as the cameras all come up, and then I'll let you close down when you're ready to do that, Andreas. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you for all participants. And especially thank you to Ernest to run through this very important session. And I don't mean run with hurrying through it, but going through it in a very concentrated way that helps all of us to work on it. Yeah, there could be a limited number of cameras which could be seen at the same time. So we wish you all the best and take care. And when we switch off our cameras, others could switch them on. Okay, have a good time and see you later the next weeks. Thanks a lot.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Goodbye to everyone.
Goodbye.